Okay, so we're going to go over the changes to limited government over time. And I want to remind you guys that this is part of our series of how the 5 basic principles have changed over time, all right? You all have your graphic organizers, I hope, up, and if you don't, get a piece of paper out or something and try to keep track of this, okay? So, as we go through the slideshow, I want you to add to that graphic organizer. You guys also have the Pear Deck, and I think it's still on student paste, so you guys can follow along with me as we go, okay? So let's talk about changes to limited government over time, okay? We want to know the definition of limited government. Limited government is a system in which government powers are carefully spelled out to prevent the government from becoming too powerful, okay? It's a system of government where the powers the government has are carefully spelled out to prevent the government from becoming too powerful. Now, we follow these same basic 4 steps through every one of these basic principles and how they've changed over time. We always look at what the Founding Fathers said first. Second, we take a look at the Constitution. What does the Constitution actually say? Third, what happened in history to prompt a change? And then fourth, are there any committees or informal procedures that help solve/clarify the issue? And again, that last one doesn't happen all too often, but we'll remember that it's there. So, the Founding Fathers, step 1. What did the Founding Fathers say? Well, the place we can look are the Federalist Papers. That's where we have the Founding Fathers' opinions on the basic principles of government. So we're going to look at Federalist number 44. Madison is giving some arguments about the powers of government, and he says that the federal government must be in charge of printing money, negotiating treaties, and levying tariffs. He says that the necessary and proper clause must be included in the Constitution because it gives the government the authority to carry out its other powers that are listed in the Constitution. And lastly, he says the necessary and proper clause appears to be, well, I guess he doesn't say that, but the idea is that the necessary and proper clause could lead to unlimited power, okay? So these colonists are afraid of the necessary and proper clause because it could lead to unlimited power. So how can the Americans, I guess, guarantee that the necessary and proper clause remain, limited, keeping the necessary and proper clause from giving the government too much authority? Well, let's look at the Constitution. There's the First and the 11th Amendments. That's an example. The First Amendment, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion, prohibiting free speech, free press, free religion, freedom to assemble, like it's your basic First Amendment rights. You guys know about that. The purpose of this law, this amendment, is to limit Congress's power, the ability of them to abuse the necessary and proper clause. And basically all 10 of the Bill of Rights, the first 10 amendments, were specifically put in there to limit the necessary and proper clause, okay? It's a limit on government. If you look through these, it's mainly Congress shall make no law doing this, that, or the other. When you're saying it cannot do something, you're limiting its power, federal government's power. Then let's go to the 11th Amendment. It states that a person from one state cannot sue another state in federal court. So it kind of separates the different states. You must actually live in said state in order to sue that state, or you must actually have an issue within that state in order to sue that state. It says that it allows each state to kind of create its own laws and sort of function and govern its own people without interference from other states. And this makes each state its own powerful government, and only the individuals in that state can have an impact on the law. Okay, so it's limiting other states from interfering with each other. So, what has occurred in history that's led to this change? One of my favorite Supreme Court cases is Kelo versus the City of New London, Connecticut. Now, This is a case that deals with eminent domain. And the idea behind this case was that the government, the local government, wanted to invoke eminent domain to essentially buy out or take people out of this neighborhood in order to sell the land to a private company. Now, the idea behind eminent domain is that it must be a public use, or it must benefit the public. So let's think about that. The city of New London, Connecticut wants to essentially remove people from their homes, take their property, in order to give it to a private company, not a public company. I think it was a drug company like medicine or pharmaceuticals. Well, the argument, the way it was going to benefit the public, was that it would revitalize the community, okay? It would give the community a whole bunch of new jobs, and it would stimulate the local economy by giving these people with jobs money, and then they'd go out and spend it in the local community. And that's how they justified it. And the way it came out is that I think it's Suzette Kilo, claimed that the business that would use the industrial center would be owned by a private company, therefore her land should not be able to be taken according to eminent domain. And here's the outcome. The Supreme Court decided that the local government did indeed have the power to exercise eminent domain because the amount of jobs would benefit the greater public, meaning everyone, the public, would benefit from this job influx. For example, more people would have jobs and the community would benefit even though a private company would own the business, okay? Now, we'll watch a video about Kilo versus New London, but I'll put a link into this video, and then you guys, you will watch this if you have not already.